In the Homeric hymn to Demeter, we have a strong focus on women's experience. The main characters, the main driving themes are things that are connected specifically to this example of the human species that is gendered female. In our Odyssey, by contrast, we've seen that the main point of this all was to look at the andra, the anthropos that was gendered male. Well, here we're going to look at an anthropos that is gendered female and look at those kind of relationships and the experiences that are specific to that part of what it is, to be human. To start off, I thought we would take a look at a couple of pairs. There are interesting doublings that happen inside of the story. Metanera and Demeter is the first one I wanted to say a few words on. With Metanera and Demeter, we have an interesting pair of figures. Metanera is near the end of her childbearing years. It says that she is someone who was waiting for a long time for Demophoon to come. She was quite frightened that he wasn't going to come at all. She was praying to the gods to see if he would come, and then Demophoon arrives, and she's thrilled and excited by it. We have someone who is nearing the end of that reproductive window, and she's coming to a close on those childbearing years. Now she's entering into a maturing state of taking care of this child and raising it and nurturing it and moving it along. We meet in the figure of Demeter, someone who, in the guise that she takes in the story, is beyond her childbearing years. In her disguise, she shows up as a person who has just been cast aside. She talks about, she's referred to by people that see her sitting on the edge there before they know who it is. They don't understand who this stranger is. They call her Granny. They talk about her as having an appearance of someone who is long cut off from childbirth. And when they do that, they start to peg her as a person who belongs in a society only in certain places. With that age come different roles for Demeter. Most of these roles are not the kind of thing that a woman who is aspiring to a grand position in society would aspire to. Demeter is someone who has limited responsibilities and possibilities in this older stage of life. She could be a housemaid or a nurse, but she's not going to be someone who is as grand as a mother or a head of a household. Metanera is, by contrast, someone who can have those roles. She has a head of a household. The fullness of her reproductive powers has been shown through this child. She has capabilities and influence and authority by those kind of powers of reproduction. The same thing is mostly deprived of Demeter because of her position on the other side of this divide. Persephone, interestingly, shows up in this understanding, this meditation as well. She's making a transition of a certain kind from being a girl living with her mother to living in another man's home as a wife of some other person. This transition in the story is very clearly cast as a kind of violence done to her. It's not a pleasant thing. It's painful for her and for her mother. It's the single source of the most dramatic moments in the story, and none of this drama is good drama, it's bad drama. Persephone shows this transition into the husband's household is filled with fear and isolation, a loss of innocence, and she has to now reimagine her relationships that she had that were most dear to her with her mother and others. This is made into, in her case, an absolutely explicit parallel between moving away from her matrilineal home, being pulled into the home of her new husband, the man who takes her away, in this case, being pulled away. That is characterized specifically as a kind of death. Persephone, who is an immortal, goes down and experiences what it is to be dead. Gods mostly don't do that. Poor Hades, he spends all his time down there, but none of the other gods do. There are trips that they make here and there, but very few of them go. Most try to avoid it. Why would a person want to go down there? Persephone lives as an immortal, experiencing the life of a mortal after death. So her positioning here as a girl who's making a transition from childhood into adulthood is specifically characterized as a kind of death. It's quite heart-wrenching. It's quite poignant to think about all the kind of trauma that happens as a life undergoes great change. In Persephone, it's also characterized as her entering into the stage of fertility. She now becomes, in the terms of the story, it's suggested and hinted that what's happening here is that Persephone is entering into the stage when her relationships with men are going to change. The pomegranate seed is an interesting symbol, likely to be the symbol of a man's seed, and the fact that she took it in is something that now changes her status completely. You'll recall that when she comes back and has a moment of audience with her mother again after having been gone for so long, the mother's very nervous and asks, have you eaten anything? Have you partaken of anything down in that underworld? It's as though she already knows because she can see it in her daughter, and having ingested the pomegranate seed means that now Persephone is now in a different stage in her life. And again, it is not a happy moment. It is a moment filled with trauma and a certain kind of pain and loss. Now, together, Persephone makes an interesting pair with Demophon. Demophon is the child that we see who emerges out of for Metanera late in her reproductive life, and she is the one that gives it over to Demeter to be raised. Well, Demeter right away thinks, I have this investment in raising this child. Demophon clearly represents for her a kind of substitute for the Persephone that she's missing. She gets a chance to take this figure in, and she brings Demophon, interestingly, from his state as a mortal child and tries to bring him over into becoming an immortal. Notice that she gives him no mortal food. He doesn't have mother's milk. Instead, she gives him something amazing. She gives him ambrosia. That's the kind of food that the gods eat, and in fact, in Homer's traditional association, the eating of ambrosia and drinking of nectar is exactly what the gods do, and the more of it they do, the more they're like gods. When humans get a chance to taste these things, they start to show signs of being immortal. So it seems in the Homeric tradition, ambrosia and nectar are actually connected with becoming a divinity itself. So the keeping food away from Demophon, human food, and the giving of ambrosia to him bring him along toward the immortal side of things. Then also this strange custom she has of burying him in the fire at night, which causes Metanera, when she witnesses it, to be a little upset, you can imagine. Well, this is a linkage to blacksmithing, as you want to heat up metal and can make it harder and firmer and more durable. So also Demeter is doing this with Demophon. She thinks that through this cycle of treatments with the ambrosia and with the fire, she's actually going to produce in Demophon a immortal character, and she will then have replaced, and well, never replaced, but she will have gone some way to recompense of the loss of the immortality of her daughter. So in the bookends around the question of death, mortality, and immortality, we have the figures of Demophon and Persephone framing them, also Metanera and Demeter. Demophon is the immortal who's maybe making the transition to immortality, Persephone, the immortal, who's making the transition to mortality. And we have a lot of meditation that's done around this question of reproduction. Human fertility and its complexity. These are what the themes that are built into our story. Each of them, interestingly, is connected with this question of reproduction is connected with the question of mortality and immortality. Both features, I think, are present in the idea of human reproduction. We are reminded at each time birth happens, the marvelous miracle of new life coming into the world, but then also each time those new lives are settled and we learn about them and see them, there's some quality of them that also reminds us that yes, indeed, all of us are mortal. The miracle of birth is a reminder also of all of our mortality. So human fertility is built into this kind of complex and fragile set of ideas where a promise of immortality is tinged always with the specter and presence of mortality. So it's as though with enfolding these two things together, the author of the Homeric hymn is telling us that we can't really have one without the other. We can't have this reproductive desire to produce offspring together with immortality. Instead, mortality is going to come with it. The two of them are unfolded together. Just behind me here, we've got a wonderful frieze that has our Demeter and Persephone. Demophoon may be this figure standing between the two of them, or another figure, Triptolemus, and in later tradition, Triptolemus, who's one of the figures in the household, and Demophoon start to exchange places. So it could be that that's what our artist is representing here. What we're seeing here is a set of meditations on really important core themes about what it is to be interestingly human, and this drama is put over onto the side of the gods. We learn about these grand stories through an intimate portrayal of characters and going through this extremely upsetting, difficult time. These characters just happen to be immortals, but boy, they sure do seem extremely human.